Hello everyone, great to see you again. So today we will be continuing on the topic for billing, and I think last time we talked about the bill in general, and we will go one level below the bill, which is bill segment, and we look at different aspects of billing in terms of how the bill segment performs. Okay, so breaking into four sections, we look at what is build segment, what they do. Then we look at the life cycle of build segment. Once we talk about build segment life cycle, we can then link that to the build cycle, how a build is generated from beginning to the end. And last, we will look at the entity relationship as well. Okay, so the build segment basics. So before we start to talk about build segment, remember we mentioned in CCMB objects, they were built following the maintenance object, and they don't have business object. So when an algorithm need to be defined, it's actually not following the rules of business object lifecycle, etc. However, they do have specific plugin spots, um, and you can find that on the SA customer class or build segment type. For example, we're going to talk about this in particular because on the build segment type, it defines a few it provides a few plugin spots where you can define the algorithm to ask the system to perform for different tasks. Okay, so let's start. So when a bill is generated for a account, the system invokes a bill segment creation algorithm, which is on the bill segment type, to create a bill segment for each billable SA. This algorithm is plugging on the build segment type, on the SA type. Okay, and second, build segments can be created differently for different type of SAs. Um, as we said, each SA stands for a service. There could be different type of services. Could be consumption-based service. Could be a loan, as we mentioned here. So different build segments can be created, and the creation uh, of the build segment is defined in the algorithm above. Build segment for SA has meter or item linked to its SP must have a get consumption algorithm defined on its build segment type. That's another plugin spot. So if you want to create, normally these algorithm for get consumption algorithm will create a usage object, and the usage will actually request for consumption. If it's in the case of C2M, it will create a CCMB usage, which triggers a MDM usage transaction, and that will kick off a calculation rule in MDM for usage. Okay, next, the type of plugin compiles a snapshot what the SP consumed during the bill period, and it is a snapshot that is used by build segment creation algorithm to create the build segment. Okay, the reason it's mentioned about snapshot is every time we try to get consumption, it is the consumption which is available at the time of a request. So if you think about a billing process, when you bill on the first day, maybe it doesn't have any reads, so it will come back to say, okay, I don't have a read, and all these details will be captured in the usage. But on the second day, let's say the actual read is arrived, and usage will be regenerated. Well, I mean, a usage object normally will be created, and then request consumption calculation in MDM, and at that point the snapshot is different, which contains the actual reads with actual consumption. So the snapshot, you can understand it as a usage request from the CCMB side, and this is triggered by the algorithm in the get consumption algorithm, as we just mentioned. Okay, next, if no read can be found, the system estimates consumption and generates a corresponding estimated meter read. For the batch billing, remember last time we talked about the bill cycle schedule. So on the bill cycle schedule, if it's reaching the estimation date on the for the schedule, then it will start to trigger estimation in MDM. And the way it does is on the usage request, there is a flag say whether it's allow estimate or not. And if MDM seeing it allows estimate but still cannot get an actual read, then the estimation rule in the VEE will be triggered to calculate the estimation rate and then return back to the bill segment via the usage. And next, after consumption is derived for SA, the system invokes the bill segment creation algorithm to calculate how much to charge for the consumption. Most of the consumption-oriented SA reference a creation algorithm and that apply a rate to calculate the charge. So at the time where the usage is, say, returned successfully with all the meter reads, we'll probably say bill reads at that point, because it is the meter reads becomes a bill read, and at that point it is applied to a rate, which you can see all the details in the bill consumption bill calc lines in the bill segment. Okay, so this is the next step it will perform. When a bill segment is produced for meter SA, it is possible for meter read cycle schedule linked to SP to indicate more than one schedule read date has transpired since the last bill segment. In getting consumption algorithm, you can indicate a separate bill segment should be created for each scheduled meter read date for the bill periods. Okay, so what that actually means is when you are calculating a particular um, bill segment, the usage, you can indicate it to create. There are different ways to segregate the different meter read periods, because you could say I want to have a separate I want to have a separate bill segment every month, even it's a quarterly bill, and that is possible because you can actually define that in the get consumption algorithm. Or what you can do is you can use the cut-off date in the usage, so you keep everything within the same bill segment and use the cutoff date in the usage, and in that way you can have different reads returned for each month. And you can calculate them separately in the bill calculation lines by applying the rate. So in that way, you still generate one bill segment, but you can show the 3 months consumptions and the charges on different lines rather than different bill segment. It depends on in your project what you actually want to do and how the customer want to see on their bill. So that is the differentiation between these two different approach. Okay, next one, for complex processing, bill segments can be controlled on sequence of bill segment processing. For example, let's say we have a consolidated billing, and in one of the scenario I've seen before is you would have different you can define on the service agreement type, and so for consolidated billing it will have a later sequence, which means all the metered SA will be processed first, and then the consolidated SA, I mean the bill segment on the consolidated SA will be processed afterwards, which collects all the information on the metered consumptions. So that's one of the approach. But I mean there are other approaches as well. But by saying that is we can control which bill segment to process first and have a stepped process if needed. And there are not just the consolidated billing, but also it can be used for the other, for example, residential billing as well if you have stepped charge in that case. Okay, so next one I would like to say talk about this metered bill segment, and their start date and end date match the meter read date. Remember I was saying it is when the meter reads coming back from MDM, it becomes a bill read, and these read dates will be used to decide what is the start and end dates for the bill segment. Remember, bill segment has start and end dates, not the bill. Okay, so the bill is triggered based on the bill schedule, but the bill date is actually derived from bill segment. And for the other type of the um, bill segments, they use different mechanisms. Normally, the start date use the either for the first bill segment use the SA start date, or the end date of the last bill segment, and the end date could be derived from an object called bill period. So in the bill period, I saw in some implementation that they define the bill period to say if I don't have defined cycle for these because the bill cycle, remember, is derived from metering cycle, but some of the SA don't have a metering cycle, so it is specified in the bill period object, so it will be referred to that. And the other mechanism includes anniversary date, or just based on the current business date. And also another thing is there is a validation in place. So when the bill is when the bill segment is generated and try to complete, there is an algorithm to prevent if it's a very short bill. And that number of days is defined on the SA type. Okay, so next let's look at the bill segment lifecycle. As I mentioned, there is no life cycle such as business object life cycle defined, but still in the system you will see the build segment life cycle is recorded as status code, and you can see on the left hand side this is the life cycle where build segment is um, where the build segment is coming from beginning to the end in this way. And the different status in the system actually is represented by a number. So you probably don't see these text in the table. You probably just see 20, 30, 40, but they are actually defining a lookup as well. So you can go to your lookup and check what they actually means for each different number. But in an overview, I just want to read out a few things on the right, which I have extract. I think these are important things. So first of all, the build segments are typically created in either freezable or error state. Okay, there is a state called incomplete, which is normally used for internal processing. So you don't see that very often. You don't actually see that on any build segment created in that status. Now, after that, a build segment in error can be regenerated or discarded. Okay, so as we said, build segment is taking a snapshot of the consumption. If build segment is in error means a lot of different things. It could be consumption too high, it could be missing some key information. But if you want to regenerate, you can recreate the build segment. A freezable build segment can be regenerated to recalculate its charge and it can be discarded. Similarly, so yeah, so um, a bill segment is frozen when the customer balance should be impacted. Okay, so when a bill segment is frozen, that means the financial transaction is frozen. When financial transaction is frozen, remember what we said last time, it is the debt, the age of debt is starting to count. So this is a quite an important thing because when we um, literally all the accounting is looking at financial transaction, and this is a key stage where the bill segment becomes um, impacting the financial transaction. Yeah. So when the yeah, as it says, the customer balance should be impacted. So next one, think about a frozen bill segment as a journal entry that goes to GL. Um, Technically, I haven't gone to any GL system, but by that time, it can be transferred to GL. In order to change that, you have to cancel it. Okay, so canceling a bill segment actually generates a separate opposite financial transaction, uh, and that cancels out the initial bill segment financial transaction. So you have two entries, and that will be cancel out each other. Um, so this is important to know because when you are dealing with especially queries on the financial transactions, you have to remember a canceled um, bill segment has two financial transactions and you need to consider in your query. Okay, so a few more things on bill segment. So bill segments can be frozen at will or frozen at bill completion. This is something you can define at the installation record. It based on your project, and I've seen both of them being used. And if you are looking at things like um, automated, normally I would think you choose frozen at bill completion because if you are not expecting any user intervention, so that should be automated. Second one, bill segment error. Okay, so there are different errors at both level, both bill segment and bill. So for example, in bill segment error, you could have missing read, you could have missing rate, you could have missing contract information, because they are all um, required for the bill calculation. And on the bill, which normally means the bill segment has passed its validation, there's no error on the bill segment, but when it gets to the bill you're trying to send to the customer, you might find, okay, there's no address to send the bill. So these are the possible scenarios, but there are many other scenarios down to individual projects. So when the bill segment error is generated, it's created to do. Type is to do BSERR, and for bill, it's the to do BIERR. So these are the to do which normally in every project we would just reuse it, but it's very important because each of them might mean you have to assign it to a specific group of users to check, why it's failed, etc. And it's important for the reporting as well each day. And it can be, of course, bill segments in error can be regenerated either manually or the batch will regenerate it and will retry it. So remember when we talk about the bill cycle schedule, between the window, let's say you run the billing batch every day this bill segment will be regenerated until the bill end date. And if it's still error out in bill end date, the to-do will remain there, and the system is just simply not going to retry it anymore. It's up to the business now to resolve those issues, or otherwise it has to wait for the next window to open. Okay, so talking a lot about the bill segments, we move on to the bill cycle. The bill cycle is relatively much simpler, but the life cycle is simple, but there are a lot of things that actually happen at different stage. Okay, so over here I want to point out the bill starts in the pending state, and when all the bill segments are in the appropriate state, let's say frozen, the bill can be completed. And then also after a bill is completed, very limited change can be made in the bill, because when a bill is completed, normally let's say the financial transaction, they are all finalized. You cannot change the bill anymore unless you do the cancel rebill. Okay, but cancel rebill doesn't mean delete the old bill. That means you cancel, you reverse, similar to reverse a bill segment. You actually would reverse the bill to cancel out the financial transaction impact. Right. Okay. So let's go to next slide, which I think this is a very important slide, because this is what is happening at the bill completion. Okay, I think this list is not complete. First of all, because there are, let's say, a bill completion, actually it can have different scenarios. The bill, let's say you create a new bill, that's a bill created. If you create a credit note, that's also a bill, and that's also going to trigger the bill completion. And there could be other scenarios. But what I want to point out here is list these important events which is going to happen at the bill completion. And these things we will definitely expand in the next few videos to look at what is happening at each stage and what you can do at each stage. And people are saying billing is complex. A lot of the complexity is happening over here. Okay, so what happens when a bill completed? First, it runs pre-completion algorithms, and they can be defined on the service agreement type, or they can be defined on the customer class on the account. So these algorithms are typically validation rules. Okay, so they are validating whether the bill is whether the bill is aligned with business values, expectations, thresholds, etc. And then the second thing is it calculates the due date, so when the bill need to be paid, and this defines this is actually a key attributes in the credit collection process. Okay, next one, late payment. Late payment charge date can be calculated, and its algorithm we'll probably talk later where it can be defined and how it can be changed. Now, once these kind of validation are done, next one is bill routing. Bill routing basically is who should receive the bill. At this point, the bill routing will be created and for every recipient for the bill. At this point, we will run another set of algorithms, and they are called completion algorithm. Now, the completion algorithm similarly can be defined on the customer class and SA type. They can be a list of algorithms to deal with internal data alignment or some notification, etc. Depends on your project, but they are the ones which need to, they are not validation anymore. They are just additional activity should be happening after the bill being created. Okay, and at this point, remember we haven't done bill message, bill financial transaction, and the bill status. Okay, so after that, we will add the bill message on the bill. So at this point, we still don't have the full bill, but we will. It is basically kind of internally used. So at this point, we can add the bill message, and the financial transaction actually is frozen. Yeah, and the bill status is becoming complete. And after that, there is another set of algorithm on the SA type and customer class, which is called post-completion algorithms. So you might find that in your project as well. Now these ones are what is required after the bill is completed, basically. So let's say a bill is completed. If you want to add additional bill message, you can define some rule over there. If you want to say add additional bill routing, well, maybe you can do that as well. And also other things like if you want to inform your maybe hedging system. It depends on whether you would do that per bill or you just have a separate batch job. But these are the place where you can define the logics to perform those tasks. Okay, so entity relationship. I've expanded a bit from what we have last time, and now we have bill and bill segments on the same diagram, linking to the account and service agreement. The bill is on account level, the bill segment is on service agreement level, and what you can see is the bill segment is linked to the usage, which in C2M it requests the MDM for the consumption calculation. And once the consumption is retrieved, it applies the rates to calculate the bill. Okay, so it's a very simple one at this stage. And I add two notes here. A bill segment has one or more bill calculation header. Separate bill calculation header exists for each. Can't really see. Each version, each version of the rate is effective during the bill period. So if you have different versions of a rate, it will be having different headers in the system. That's the default behavior, which means you could have, you can have, for example, if you refresh your rates version every year, that could be one of the reasons to have separate headers. A bill line exists for each calculation performed by a rate. It contains a snapshot of calculation and how the printed bill line will look like. As I said, in bill segment, if you look at the bill calc line, that actually shows all the details of how the rate is applied with the consumption. So in the bill segment, you will see usage, that is the request to MDM and the response. You have SQ details, that basically copies all the details from usage, and it calculates additional SQ as required. And then once the SQ is there, it applies the rate, and you can see in the bills, in the calculation line, calculation header, then you can see how the different headers are calculated, and they can be then passed onto the bill print to generate the bill. Okay, so that's everything today. So thank you very much, and I think for this session onwards, it's getting a bit more challenging, and I hope next time we will dig a bit deeper into the billing again, and I think hopefully we can talk through how the bill actually works end to end, and then explore all the options where the configuration can be done, and maybe scenario based. If there is a requirement, what can we change in terms of the bill configurations, which is important for each project. So thank you very much, and have a good weekend.